Hey everyone, Kevin here. Generally speaking, in e-learning or any form of learning really, you want to present information in many different ways. Say you're communicating new information about your company and want to have some interactives, a video, and some text to read. And that's all fine and good. I've made many such courses myself, and on paper, that hits all the right notes for a good course. The problem comes when you repeat the same information, though, which is a very common error. Now, what I'm specifically referring to here, though, is something called the redundancy principle. You might also hear it called the redundancy effect. Basically, an example of this is the age old thing you remember from school, where your professor would have a PowerPoint presentation on the screen and pretty much read them aloud verbatim to you. When I was a teacher, I would have those PowerPoints up, but would greatly expand what was on them to enhance the information and, well, round it out a bit. The problem with repeating what is written on the screen orally is that it clogs up the learner's working memory and they lose focus on what they're trying to learn. Often, this leads to forgetting what was just said or read entirely, which forces them to go back and reread everything again. You might remember this from your training to be an ID or educator as cognitive load theory, where people can only take on so much information before needing to stop and process it all. I often find this problem in compliance training most of all, like those sexual harassment courses or the annoying mandated reporter and bloodborne pathogen trainings we had to do every year as educators. It just adds a layer of irritation to learning that doesn't even need to be there in the first place. But to get to the point, how does the redundancy principle affect us as instructional designers while creating e learning? Well, just like the examples I just gave, imagine a course where you have a narrator reading every single thing that is on screen for the learners. If you look at the data, more often than not, the audio just gets muted by learners during the course so they can read it without the narration. Many companies demand such narration for courses that simply don't need it, and if anything, will only serve to hamper progress toward fixing the training problem. It also kind of makes learners think you don't trust them enough to learn things on their own, and you must hold their hand to the point that they disengage from the training. Now, I'm not saying narration is bad. My flagship storyline course in my portfolio is totally narrated by me, though it could probably use an update since I have better sound recording equipment now. But that course doesn't repeat things. My narration is there to walk learners through a complex login task that is really not intuitive at all. This serves as a guide on what to do, and they have to click on things that I tell them to advance the course, with assessments sprinkled throughout to check their understanding. Narration should always be available for people who might need it, but it shouldn't be burned onto the course unless there is a good training reason to do so. This does not apply to subtitles, by the way, which I'll talk about in another video soon. I like to compare this to when you have a tutorial in a video game, where they give you the basics at the beginning of the game, and then you learn more as you play. Some games I've played provide practically none of this, and it left me frustrated, while others held my hands so much I started skipping vital information out of the same kind of irritation I mentioned earlier that our learners experience. There needs to be a happy medium, and in any type of learning, there needs to be a purpose. If you're adding narration just to have it and because it seems like something you should do, then don't waste your time or money doing that. Otherwise, you're just going to run headfirst into the redundancy principle and probably get poor reviews from learners during the evaluation phase that you have to go right back and correct later. Heck, it might even affect the results so much that learners don't end up changing their behavior on the job, thus leaving the training problem unfixed. Simply stick to the point and what you need to use or create to get there. And to prevent myself from becoming redundant, I'm going to end here for today. As always, I'm here to help if you need it or to expand on this information further. See you next time.